Her Tesla was parked exactly where mine should have been. I sat in my rental for 3 seconds, maybe 4, watching the way it was angled slightly left, like she'd pulled in without thinking about how it'd look. The vanity plate I'd complimented at brunch last month. K-Love 1. Kay's car. At my building. At 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, when Kay knew I was supposed to be in Boston until tomorrow. My husband didn't know I'd rescheduled my flight. The client meeting fell through. I'd texted him an hour ago, heading home early, surprise dinner, but he hadn't responded. He never left his phone alone, not even in the shower. I pulled into the visitor spot and sat there, engine off, watching the lobby entrance. Kay had a key to this building. I'd given her one years ago when she was between apartments. I'd asked for it back 3 times. Each time she laughed like I was joking. That detail sits differently in my mouth now. The elevator was going to take forever. I grabbed my suitcase instead and headed toward the stairs. My legs felt sharp, controlled. I wasn't confused. I was already 3 steps ahead, and my body knew it before my mind did. By the time I hit the 4th floor landing, I understood exactly what I was going to find. The apartment door was unlocked. I didn't use my key, just turned the handle and pushed it open slowly, the way you do when you're not sure what's on the other side, but you're certain it's bad. The entryway was exactly as I'd left it. Shoes lined up, mail on the console, the painting Marcus had hated, but I'd kept anyway. Then I heard it. A sound that wasn't words, but was definitely laughter. Female, coming from down the hall. My suitcase was still in my hand. I set it down without making noise, a small, deliberate movement. My phone was in my pocket. I didn't pull it out. Not yet. I needed to see this clearly, and a phone in my hand would make me feel like I was documenting something, like I was a victim recording proof. I wasn't going to be that person in this moment. The bedroom door was cracked open. I could see the edge of our bed, the gray sheets I'd bought 2 weeks ago, and a sliver of the window beyond it. Kay's voice came again, lower this time, not laughing anymore, something softer, something I'd never heard her use with me. I moved toward it the way you move when you've already decided something and you're just walking through the steps. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, almost calm. That terrified me more than anything. Through the gap in the door, I saw the back of Marcus's head, his dark hair, his shoulders, and Kay's hand on his chest. I didn't open the door wider. I stood there in the hallway, watching through the crack like I was watching something on a screen. Distant, clear, manageable. Kay was wearing my robe. The cream one from Bergdorf's that I'd mentioned wanting but never bought. The one I'd seen her eyeing in my closet 3 weeks ago when she was helping me clean out my summer clothes. I'd said she could borrow it sometime. I hadn't meant like this. Marcus was saying something I couldn't quite hear. His hand was on her waist, on top of the robe. He looked smaller somehow, less solid, like a version of him I didn't recognize. What struck me wasn't the betrayal yet. That would come later, in waves. What struck me first was how ordinary it looked. How boring. They weren't even really touching, just existing in the same space with their bodies angled toward each other. There was no passion visible, just routine. Like they'd done this before, multiple times, enough times that it had become normal. That's when I understood it wasn't new. I stepped back from the door without making a sound and walked back to the entryway. My suitcase was still there. I picked it up and pulled out my phone. No response from Marcus. 3 messages from Kay in our group chat with 2 other friends, all sent in the last hour. Casual, normal, just thinking about happy hour Friday, like she wasn't in my bed. I looked at her contact photo. The 2 of us at the beach last summer, our arms around each other. Genuine smiles. I deleted it from my phone right there in the hallway. Then I texted Marcus. I'm staying at the Hilton tonight. We need to talk tomorrow. I didn't leave immediately. I stood in the kitchen. Their kitchen. I corrected myself, and made coffee like I lived here. Like this was my morning routine and not the worst afternoon of my life. The coffee maker gurgled. I heard movement in the bedroom, a door closing. I didn't flinch. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway 5 minutes later, pulling his shirt down. He looked confused first, then his face went white. I watched him process it, the suitcase by the door, me standing at the counter with a mug in my hand. The fact that I wasn't screaming. "Lauren," he said, just my name, no explanation attached, like the word itself was supposed to be enough. I took a sip of coffee. It was too hot, but I did it anyway. "Your phone's been buzzing for 10 minutes. It's probably work." He didn't move toward his phone. He was trying to calculate what I knew, what I'd seen, what I was going to do. I could see it happening in real time, the fear shifting into something else. Damage control. He was already thinking about what came next, how to minimize this, how to explain it away. "I know about how long it's been," I said quietly. "I'm not stupid. You both have the same coffee order now. She mentioned a show you watched together last week, and you pretended not to know what I was talking about. Small things. I just wasn't paying attention until I wasn't supposed to be here." Kay appeared behind him, wearing her clothes now, her face arranged into something apologetic, as if an apology could matter, as if she thought this was about feelings. "Don't," I said, looking at her. "Just don't." I set down the mug and picked up my suitcase. "I'm going to take 3 days to figure out what I want. And then I'm going to dismantle both of you very carefully." The Hilton room was generic enough to be invisible. I checked in under my maiden name, a small move, but it felt important. I needed to be someone other than Mrs. Marcus Chen for a while. I didn't cry. I ordered room service instead and sat by the window with my laptop, pulling up our finances. This was the part where most people got emotional. I got methodical. Marcus made $340K a year, most of it in stock options that vested quarterly. We had a joint account with $180K in it, money we'd saved for a house down payment. I had my own account with another $95K from my consulting work. The apartment was in both our names, but I'd paid the down payment, all of it. I opened a new document and started writing, not a diary, a timeline. Every small thing I'd noticed and dismissed over the past 6 months. The late meetings that were actually with Kay. The team lunches that were just the two of them. The way he'd started going to the gym at 6 a.m., not because he suddenly cared about fitness, but because it gave him an excuse to shower before coming home. Kay and I had been friends for 7 years. She knew my passwords because I'd been careless. She knew my mother's maiden name, my favorite hotels, the code to my office building. She'd borrowed my clothes so many times I'd stopped tracking what was hers and what was mine. By midnight, I had 43 documented instances. By 2 a.m., I'd opened a separate bank account and transferred $47K into it, half of what I'd earned in the last 2 years. Marcus didn't know about this money. He'd never asked. I wasn't angry yet. Anger would come, but right now I was something colder and more useful. I was planning. Marcus called at 7 a.m. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "We need to talk," he said. His voice had that careful quality, the one he used in business meetings when he was trying to control the narrative. "I'm listening. It's not what you think. It just happened. We weren't planning it. It was stupid and—" "How long?" I cut him off. Silence. Long enough that I knew the answer before he said it. 4 months, he finally said. 4 months. Since March. Since before my promotion. Since before I'd taken on the bigger clients and started working 70-hour weeks. Since before I'd been too tired to notice anything. "And Kay?" I asked. "She feels terrible. She wants to talk to you. She says—" "I don't care what she says." My voice was flat, observational. "I want to know if you love her." Another silence. This one was different. In that silence, I heard the answer to a question I hadn't asked yet. Whether this was an affair or the beginning of something else. Whether he'd already imagined a life without me. "I don't know," he said finally, and that was almost honest. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay in the apartment for now. I'm going to have my lawyer contact you by Friday. We're going to divide everything cleanly. You're going to be generous about it, or I'm going to make sure Kay's husband understands exactly what his wife has been doing for the past 4 months. Lauren, we can work through this. We can go to therapy." "No, we can't," I said. "You already made the choice. Now I'm making mine." I hung up before he could respond. Kay's husband, David, was easier to reach than I expected. He picked up on the second ring. He was at work, probably at his desk, probably thinking it was a normal Thursday. "David, it's Lauren. Do you have 5 minutes?" His voice shifted. He could hear something in my tone. Yeah, of course. What's wrong? I didn't tell him over the phone. I sent him a link to a shared folder instead. Screenshots, timestamps, credit card statements showing hotel charges on dates when Kay had told him she was at conferences. A recording I'd made from my apartment hallway 2 days ago. Nothing dramatic. Just audio. Just proof. I didn't say anything cruel. I just said, I thought you should know before you make any decisions about your future. He called back 40 minutes later. He was in his car, parked somewhere. I could hear the engine running. How long have you known? He asked. Since Tuesday. I found out the same way you just did. Does Marcus know you're telling me? No. And I'm not asking you to do anything with this information. I'm just giving it to you so you can make choices based on reality instead of lies. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, thank you. After he hung up, I sat with that word. It felt strange, like I'd done something noble, but I hadn't. I'd just distributed the truth in a way that served my purposes. Kay would lose her marriage, Marcus would lose both of us. My lawyer would have leverage in the settlement negotiations because suddenly both of them would be motivated to keep things quiet. I wasn't being vengeful, I was being efficient. By Friday, the dominoes would start to fall. 6 weeks later, the settlement was finalized. I kept the apartment. I kept most of the joint savings. Marcus's lawyer had fought hard, but David's lawyer had called him. Apparently, they'd connected, and suddenly Marcus's negotiating position had collapsed. He'd agreed to almost everything. Kay and David were separated. She'd moved into a short-term rental in a part of the city where she wouldn't run into people we knew. Marcus had taken a lease on a one-bedroom in Murray Hill. I'd seen the address in the court documents. It was the kind of place you go when your life has compressed into something manageable, but sad. I didn't feel triumphant. That surprised me. The therapist I'd started seeing, not to save my marriage, but to understand myself, asked me if I felt like I'd gotten justice. I got leverage, I'd said. I used it cleanly. That's not the same thing. What I didn't tell her was that the part that satisfied me most wasn't the settlement or the apartment or even watching them lose each other. It was knowing that I'd stayed ahead of the situation the entire time. While Marcus was panicking and Kay was falling apart and David was reeling, I'd been 3 steps forward, making choices instead of having choices made for me. I'd walked into that apartment on a Tuesday afternoon expecting devastation. Instead, I'd found clarity, and I'd used it. Now, standing in my kitchen, I made coffee the way I liked it. No one else's preferences, no compromises. I looked at my phone and saw a message from a potential client, a big one, the kind I'd been too busy to pursue when I was married. I'd lost a husband and a best friend in one afternoon, but I'd found myself, and she was going to be fine.